As a personal injury attorney, so I deal with insurance all day long. My clients, obviously, who are involved in car accidents come in. And it's amazing to me how people underestimate the possibility of something bad happening to them. And then when they are in that situation, they find out that they regret having selected the smallest amount of coverage possible. I mean, the law requires now a minimum $25,000 policy, but you know, if you've been sideswiped or T-boned or rear-ended and you end up with whiplash, your medical bills can easily exceed $10,000, $15,000, $25,000 is not that much. What do you do when you have clients come in? Do you, just as out of curiosity, I mean, how many people sort of really ask what are the limits of coverage?
You know, Paul, this is a very good question in a way, because a lot of time when I deal with the customer, they just want to get the minimum requirement, which is $25.50 and $25 the bodily injury and property damage. And I try to recommend them that it's very important to have a proper coverage, because if you have a asset, you own a home, business, you need to have
that's at risk.
Yeah, because you don't want to take a chances. So I really sit down with them, and I call myself a trusted advisor. I say, listen, I know the insurance business. You may not know. A lot of people, they take the insurance policy and they just put it away and they don't see that. And I don't want to be one of those customers, you as a person that are coming to me. So I sit down and explain them. If you have a home, if you have a business, you should have a two most important part: the higher coverage and a full coverage. Some people, they just take the liability only.
Right.
Because state of Nevada requires only basic liability. They don't look at the comprehensive inclusion unless you have a lease car or the, you have a loan on that.
Now, for those of us in the industries, personal injury attorneys, as an insurance broker, we often refer to as what's called UM/UIM coverage.
Yes.
Uninsured motorist or underinsured motorist coverage. Explain to our viewers the difference between, and I'm amazed how many people don't understand the difference. Explain the difference between just liability insurance versus having this additional layer of protection.
Okay. Liability insurance is basically all you're protecting somebody else.
Yeah.
Let's say if you have a $25,000, $50,000 liability insurance, which is a 25. I wanted to explain that if you don't mind, because a lot of people don't understand. $25,000 is a one person who's driving the car.
Right.
$50,000 is as many people in the car.
Right.
That's a maximum they will cover.
All they can get is that pocket of that barrel of money is $50,000.
$50,000.
Yeah.
So let's say if somebody's hurt really.
Let's say if you have a van and you have 10 people in that car.
10, exactly.
Those 10 people have to fight over the $50,000.
$50,000. Thank you. That's a good question. That's very good explanation. And that's very important, is that a lot of people don't understand.
Right.
So you're protecting not you, you're protecting somebody else, because that's for somebody else. No, which is uninsured motorists, and underinsured motorists, you're protecting yourself.
Right.
Let's say if somebody hits and run and you don't have, and you don't know who that person is, you are really in a very disadvantage. But if you have an uninsured motorist and underinsured motorist, and they can't find the other person, your insurance company will pay for it.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's a very important to have. And comprehensive collision is also if a car is newer, let's say 10 years, 15 years, or 5 years old, you should have a full coverage, because comprehensive collision is good, that if the car is damaged, they will pay for the replacement of the car.
So I always ask my clients these questions. I said, do you drink and drive? And most people say, no, try not to. Are you an irresponsible person? And they say, no, I'm not. I said, well, do you think you're the kind of person that just drives so crazy that you're going to cause an accident? No, I'm very careful on the road. I said, great. Well, guess what? None of that matters, because you can wake up in the morning and control your own actions. But what about the other people out there who are going to hit you? And I said, most people think in terms of, if I cause an accident and I get sued, well, I want protection. So they get the basic minimal liability policy. But most people are not thinking that, hey, you know what? I go to a job every day, and we live in a 24/7 city, and maybe there's somebody on the road who is drinking and driving. Maybe there is some crazy person who's not following the rules, and they're speeding in a 25-mile-per-hour zone. They're going 50. What happens when I get hit by that person? and I don't have insurance coverage and they don't have good insurance coverage, well, guess what? You're out of luck. And that's why it's so important to have this UM/UIM
It's
coverage.
I think it's a very good question, Paul, and I think you explained it very clearly, because a lot of people, they don't think that way. I mean, you can be very responsible driver, but you have no control on the other side, all those people on the road.
Yeah.
So in order to protecting you from other, the people who are not a responsible driver or maybe reckless driver, so you have to have that, the uninsured, underinsured motorist.
Now, can my viewers come in and meet with you and just say, hey, Fayaz, I'd like you to review my policy and tell me if you think I have good coverage? Are you?
I would love to, yeah, because that's what I call it as a trusted advisor.
Yeah.
You can come in, sit down with me.
Even if they're they have their policy with someone else, they can come in and say,
yes,
can you review it and tell me what am I missing here? Okay.
I would love to, because that way I can educate them. I can make them understand what kind of coverage they have, if they're, if they're covered properly.
Yeah.
Because I believe myself that talking to my client, that when they come, I ask them those questions. I said, do you have any asset? You own a home? You have any business? Because these are very important. If something goes wrong while you're driving, even it's not your fault, it's going to affect that.
Yeah.
So it's better protect, because I always try to encourage them to have a umbrella policy.
Right.
Because umbrella policy, Paul, I tell you, it's a really so important, because that covers anywhere you at or any situation. Umbrella means when you're raining, you put the umbrella and you can cover yourself so you don't get wet. Same with the policy is in a very similar, and it's so inexpensive.
That is amazing that you actually recommend that, because that really speaks volumes about you, that you care about your clients, to make sure that in the hopefully unfortunate situation that something bad happens, they're fully protected. Because I've not heard a lot of insurance brokers talk about an umbrella policy.
No, I love that. I tell them, say, listen.
And it is cheap.
Yeah, it's very cheap, because if you have a home and car, or even a rental and car, and if you combine them together, the discount what you get, it pays automatically for a few $100s a year. I mean, for $1 million to $2 million, you can, and that's a very good protection, because at least they are not going to touch your assets. So your umbrella policy will even block that, will cover most of the issues. So I recommend that most of the time. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's excellent. Now, what about MedPay? What is that? Medical payments coverage.
Okay, MedPay. It's a very unique situation. Some school of thought is that if you have a health insurance, if you have, let's say, Medicare, or if you work at the place that you have a health insurance, they say that that's a primary. If you're an accident, they will first thing they will cover that. So a lot of time people don't seem to understand that it's good to have health insurance, fine, but that protects you and your loved one.
Right.
Let's say your wife or your loved one is riding with you, but what about if your friend is riding with you and they had an accident and you don't have MedPay, medical insurance? Well, who's going to pay for them?
Yeah, that's a great point.
So I recommend them to have a medical insurance also, to at least a reasonable, we start talking about 25,000 to, because let's say if there is a small accident, they need to be transported to hospital and there is going to be a bill. Well, who is going to take care of your loved one, your wife or you, because you are covered that.
Sure.
So a lot of people don't understand. They say, no, I don't need medical because I have a medical. What? No. If you are transporting some friend and somebody who happened to be riding with you and you are in that situation, so you have to look about...
You're protecting them as well.
Protecting them also too.
And it's really money that comes out to insurance companies, my experience, they just pay that right away.
That's right. They take care of it right away. Yeah, they don't hold it. Yeah.
Now, does it cover a deductible?
There is a deductible for, between 250, 2,000, whatever that they have. So they take that deductible out of that. But because it's each incident, whatever that you have, they take care of that. So, yeah.
Okay. I got to tell you, I remember when I started my law firm, I had a couple or wife who came in with 2 young children. Her husband owned a driving school, and he had a 2550 policy. I couldn't believe it. It was such a low policy. At that time, actually, it was a 1530 policy.
Oh, yeah,
because at that time the law was only that 15
required that.
Thankfully, in Nevada, they changed the law to 25. I think 20, at least a minimum of 25.
Yeah, 2550. Yes.
2550 now. So what happened was this young man had been T-boned by a woman in a Ford F-150 pickup truck who had no insurance, and he was left paraplegic all he could do was move his neck. He could not move any other part of his body. And it was heartbreaking because, first of all, the lady who hit him had no assets to sue. And all he could get was under his, he had the minimum policy, or actually she had 1530 and he had no UIM coverage. So all he could get was $15,000. I mean, that is a perfect illustration example of how something so catastrophic can happen. Had he had, let's say, maybe $1 million in UIM coverage, at least he would have had that money, you know, but now he had to struggle with these medical bills for the rest of his life. So I tell all my clients how extremely important it is. People don't realize that. Think about how much time we spend every day in the car and the possibility that something bad can happen. It's amazing that people don't do more investigation to make sure that they protect themselves. So I want to invite everybody watching, if you have questions, please reach out to Fayaz. He is a wealth of knowledge.
Well, thank you very much. And what you mentioned about that situation, because I tried to recommend that at least minimum 300,000 liability, that you know, and then $100,000 for the property damage, and same amount for the uninsured insured motor, because if the situation like that, at least they have some money coming up to take it up, but and then having umbrella on top of that, so you are pretty much protected that a lot more. So and these are very important part where people sometimes, you know, you have to sit down and explain them. Once they understand,
people get it then.
People get it then.
Right.
Yeah.